All right, everybody, what is going on? Good late morning. Hope your Sunday is going well, and it's time to open up the conversation on wide receiver free agents. Going to be a relatively narrow conversation, which is nice. There are going to be a lot of free agent wide receivers this year, and I don't want to have to sit here and talk about all of them, and I don't have to because we know the scenario where the Seahawks need a little help at wide receiver, and it's not necessarily some huge thing, right? We've got good stuff at receiver right now, and we've also got a pretty healthy investment at the wide receiver spot. So for the time being, there's not some overwhelming need to go out and spend a ton of money on a top receiver. So we can focus in on a handful of specific guys. And let's think about the scenario where the Seahawks need a receiver. Because I think we all understand that if we do re-sign Rashid Shaheed, we don't need another one. All right, everybody, before we go any further into this video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about the Sleeper app and some new functionality they've recently rolled out, Team Picks. With Team Picks, you can pick winners in all kinds of sporting events. Right now, we have NBA basketball, college basketball, NHL hockey is going on, baseball's going to start in a little more than a month, and of course, you have futures in the NFL, even though the games in the NFL are over. Right now, if you look to my left here, you can actually see you can bet on next year's Super Bowl winner. They've got the Seahawks leading the way in those odds, by the way, at 12%. How does that make you feel as a Seahawks fan? But you can bet on MVP, you can bet on draft picks, you can bet on player destinations, all kinds of fun stuff, even though the season is over. So that is team picks over on Sleeper. A lot of fun stuff you can do. Right. So if the Seahawks lose Rashid Shaheed in free agency, it's because they couldn't match the offer that another team made. Basically, they couldn't afford him or they didn't view him as being worth whatever it is he got, however you want to put it. But we all kind of expect Shaheed to get somewhere around 14 to 16 million per year on a contract. It's going to be like 3 years, 35 45 million. That is the most likely landing area here. Now, somebody could come in and overpay him to a ridiculous amount, like the Raiders, but right now we're assuming that Shaheed falls somewhere in that 12 to 15. Well, I'll say 14 to 16 million dollar a year range. Now, if the Seahawks cannot match that, they're obviously not going to pay more than that for a different receiver. So we don't have to talk about the George Pickenses or the Alec Pierces or the Tyreek Hills of the world. Anybody who's going to cost more than Shaheed is someone we don't have to waste our time with, because if we weren't willing to spend the money on Shaheed, why would we go out and spend more money on maybe a better player? But again, when's he going to get the ball? JSN already monopolizes this passing offense. Cooper Cup's going to be here one more year, and you're paying him a bunch of money. You expect him to be there for you. You've got AJ Barner and Torrey Horton's coming back. And again, you don't throw the ball that much. So you don't have to worry about the guys that are as or more expensive than Shaheed. So our goal, as we're looking at these free agent wide receivers, is to find guys that are discounted pretty significantly from Shaheed, guys who are going to be a lot cheaper. And some guys that might fall under that category that can offer some of the things that Shaheed does. Because if we go out and get a receiver, I want someone who can be a downfield threat, a speedster, somebody that can run the defense off, somebody who can intimidate opposing defenses in a similar way to Shaheed, just not as well, and they cost less money. Maybe somebody like a Marquise Hollywood Brown, who is a free agent from the Chiefs this offseason, not coming off the best year. His career has not really gone in the way that people were expecting after he got traded to Arizona. He was not what Kansas City was hoping for, but he's still a capable player, and he didn't have a terrible year in 2025 or anything. He was passably well graded by Pro Football Focus, and there is talent here, and he can be the downfield threat that you don't have if you lose Shaheed to a certain extent. He's not a pure burner, but I think he will threaten defenses when he's on the field. And according to Spotrac, you can get him for 1 year, 5.5 million. So that's a lot less than what Shaheed is going to cost. 1 year deal means you can kind of kick the can down the road and just say, okay, we're going to borrow Marquise Brown for a year and use him as our guy to knock defenses out of stacked boxes. And then we'll reconsider this conversation in 2027. And obviously, he's not a prolific receiver at this point in his career, but he doesn't need to be. We're not going to ask him to catch a lot of passes. So whatever production he gives us will be fine, even if it's like 400 yards. He just needs to be a threat. And that's mostly what I'm going to be looking for from these guys, because if we're not willing to pay a higher price, we can't really reasonably expect somebody to be a highly productive player. Okay, so Marquise Brown, one guy. Here's another. So Christian Kirk here, been in the league for a little while now, 29 years old, going to turn 30 during the season next year. So getting up there, but he can be a little bit of that downfield threat that I was talking about. Not a pure burner, especially not anymore. And his best years are well behind him. Had 1,100 yards in 2022 in Jacksonville, but since then he's been falling out of the league, you could almost say. And he was not particularly good in Houston last year, but he's still a guy who I think can run off the defense and get the job done as a serviceable player. And some of his drop off has to be attributed to the fact that CJ Stroud did not play well last year and that Houston offense in general was kind of dysfunctional. So Christian Kirk, to me, again, it's not great, but if you want great, you're going to have to pay great money. And you already decided you're not going to pay great money for this kind of a need when you're letting Shaheed go. So therefore, Kirk becomes an adequate fill-in. He had a nice playoff game, a nice little playoff run for the Texans, by the way, of note, because that's the most recent football he's played. Pro Football Focus could not stand his 2025 regular season. They had him as one of the worst graded receivers in football. So buyer beware. But again, you're not looking for somebody to produce big time. You just want somebody out there to be a threat. And Spotrac has him at 1 year, 5.4 million approximately. He might even be less than this, honestly. With the production he had last year, he might be less. He might be a few $1,000,000. I don't know. I'm not convinced that he's going to be an over 5 million a year guy at this stage. I mean, it's not just this 1 year, right? If you go back to 2024, he did very little. So maybe it's not a terrible idea. Calvin Austin of the Steelers, another reasonable option here. Can offer a little bit down the field. Going to turn 27 in like a month here. So he's not old yet. He's should be entering his prime. Didn't really have a breakout season in 2025 the way some people were kind of hoping with him, with Pickens gone and DK Metcalf not producing at the high level they were hoping. But there's a lot of things in that Pittsburgh offense that are kind of funky, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much. I think he's a pretty talented player. And again, if you don't need huge production out of this guy. This is a guy you just need to be competent and do his job and be annoying to opposing defenses because they know they have to respect his downfield abilities when he's on the field. Spotrac has him with a 2 year deal. I don't know why, but 2 years, 9.7 million. So that's a little less than 5 million per year. So I don't know why he would get a 2 year deal. I know he's young. Maybe it's not a terrible thing to have to give him a 2 year deal. But I don't know why this guy deserves a 2 year deal and somebody like Marquise Brown or even a Christian Kirk doesn't. It's probably just the age thing. But even with that, this is a relatively replacement level type player. So I think it's probably going to be a 1 year deal. And even if it's not going to cost that much. So whatever. And final guy for this video is going to be Jalen Nailor, Speedy, over with the Minnesota Vikings. Been in the league 4 years now. Last 2 years, he's been one of actually the best yards per reception guys in the league. So he does offer some pretty serious downfield threat stuff. He's got 10 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons combined, by the way. Almost 900 total yards, almost 60 total catches. So he's a guy who makes big things happen when he gets the ball thrown his way. Not super efficient, but These downfield threat guys typically are not. This might be the kind of guy that you get on a discount price to replace what you're losing when you let Rashid Shaheed go. Pro Football Focus thinks that he's serviceable. 66.3 isn't bad. It works. And Spotrac thinks he's a 1 year, $4.7 million guy. That's a pretty forgivable price. And again, assuming that you walk away from Shaheed because of the price, then Nailor is somebody that you're going to be able to get for probably about a third of that, maybe even a little bit less. Guys like this slip through the cracks. Sometimes these guys are still sitting in free agency in like June, and then you pick them up and sign them, and you don't even have to worry about the comp pick game, which is nice. But guys like Jalen Nailor can fall through the cracks no problem. So definitely an intriguing idea here. I would be this is actually one of my favorites if we need to replace Shaheed. So that's kind of the archetype I'm looking for here. Shouldn't be too hard to find, but just understand you're going to get what you pay for here. These players are not as good as Shaheed, not just as returners. Like none of these guys can return the way Shaheed can, of course, but they're also not offensive receiver threats the way Shaheed is. But maybe you can get by. And you're going to be saving big money. So it's not like you're getting nothing out of the exchange. All right. So let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys later today. There's more to talk about. We're going to talk about a few more receivers before we're done. And I know that we are talking about guys that are not the most exciting players in the world. But if we lose Shaheed, I think it's pretty important we find the right kind of guy to replace him in free agency or maybe the draft, although I'm not super hot to trot on that. All right, go Hawks. See you guys soon.